think it's our calling to wake up as much as we can. And when we wake up, we see such painful things, and it's hard not to get pretty down about it. But there's a liberation in not hiding anymore. This is our hero's journey. This is your generation's hero's journey. And I wish I could take it from you, because it's a rough one.
You can't see, but you can smell and the sound.
There are several links I think missing. One of them is just the connection to a meal. To sit down and turn everything on. You have to look at the soil as a living being, really. It's Gaia, it's the earth. And in that soil, you have to look and see who's living there. There are all kinds of microbial life in there.
The farming world over the past 100 years in the United States has shifted dramatically. We live in a world where fast food and cheap commodities are often more important to American citizens than the people and practices at the source of their food. Factory farming is polluting America in more ways than we realize. In 2007, America was home to over 2.2 million farms, of which only about 20,000 were organic. The U.S. Census defines a farm as any establishment which produced and sold, or normally would have produced and sold, $1,000 or more of agricultural products during the year. What are the problems with factory farming? Here's an example. 90% of the nation's poultry production is controlled by just 10 companies. Corporate pressure on farmers can lead to abuse of human laborers, which falls into line with mistreatment of animals and their environment. In fact, due to genetic manipulation, 90% of broiler chickens have trouble walking.
The price of meat would double or triple if full ecological costs, including fossil fuel use, groundwater depletion, and agricultural chemical pollution, were factored in. The 2.8 million hogs, 43 million broiler chickens, 5.6 million egg-laying hens, 27,000 beef cattle, and 15,500 dairy cows on factory farms in Missouri produce as much untreated manure as 73 million people, 12 times the population of Missouri. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, hog, chicken, and cattle waste has polluted 35,000 miles of rivers in 22 states, the equivalent of polluting 15 Mississippi rivers. So why do people use factory farms? It's pretty simple. To produce food on a mass level at a very small price, factory farms are the perfect solution. It's no surprise that the majority of U.S. factory farms reside in the Midwest. Missouri itself is home to factory farms for numerous products, such as cattle, dairy, hogs, and broilers. The headquarters of Premium Standard Farms, the second largest pork producer in the nation, is located in Princeton, Missouri.
But is organic farming better than factory farming? Crops grown with organic methods are generally grown without synthetic pesticides, artificial fertilizers, biotechnology, or irrigation, a form of radiation used to kill bacteria. According to a report by the National Academy of Sciences, even low-level pesticide exposure can be significantly more toxic to fetuses and children due to their less developed immune systems. Animals on organic farms must eat only organically grown feed. They must not be confined 100% of the time, as they usually are on conventional farms, and they must not be raised without antibiotics or synthetically grown hormones. Organic farming also reduces pollutants in groundwater and creates richer soil that aids plant growth while reducing erosion, according to the Organic Trade Association. Organic farming used 50% less energy than conventional farming methods in one 15-year study.
At the present time, we use
use a small percentage of locally grown food. A lot our supplier. We have an order guide, and it will give you a little marker on the product if it's locally grown. I can pick a locally grown one over one that isn't locally grown, but on a lot of items there you don't have a choice.
My son, Francois, is my middle kid, is now living on the farm, and he's one of the farm-to-school coordinators up at Truman. They tried to get Sodexo, which is their food service, to include, there's so many farmers around that region, to include farmer-grown food, local food within a 50-mile or less range. And for a while they were able to do it. The question of uniformity for Sodexo was a big deal. First of all, things didn't come in shrink-wrapped packages. And they began to worry about all kinds of things. Different sizes of these things are harder to prep en masse. You know, we're talking about massive preparation. It does present certain pretty significant problems to a food service.
I definitely want to be able to buy as much locally grown as we can. Part of our issue is our location, Midwest, and the growing season and the school season. That makes a difference as to what we can buy, what we can use. In wintertime, there's nothing locally to be able to purchase. Well, I think there's always an advantage as a consumer to buy something that's locally grown. I think you would do more at home with local grown things because of quantities.
An increased connection to food would increase our connection to the land, would increase our love for everything that exists on earth. And really, love is the connection that will help us through compassionate hearts to change our ways without beating ourselves up or thinking of 50 ways to save the planet and all this kind of stuff. If our orientation internally would fundamentally change, we would know in our hearts what to do.
Well, I mean, I think the advantages are pretty factual generally, just that, like, it's better for the animals, it's better for the people. Generally, the food is healthier. It's better, like, when you're supporting local businesses, local farmers, and just kind of keeping that circle going.
The advantage would be the quantity that you can get at any one given time. You have a supplier that comes twice a week that you purchase through online, but they do have an amount, a fair amount. They're coming up with more and more locally grown things. Probably 80% of what we do, what we purchase, is probably comes from the factory. We did a little bit of buying 2 years ago from the university, from their local farmers that they were producing there. And it's the variety of the food that they offer. It makes it hard to fit it into our menus for what you boys will buy and eat.
We buy all fruit and vegetables from local vendors, which is right across the street. And he buys from Produce Row, which is down at Solar. So it's all locally grown. We don't buy anything from U.S. Foods, which is our main people, you know. Eric's Hall insists on that. You know, each school has a different rule, and Eric's wants that. Everything is fresh and looks nice because we buy in small quantities. And the girls get all excited about bringing me the lettuce and radishes and cucumbers, you know, from the garden that we have here. And they grow that, and so they get all excited. And, you know, it's good for them to see that, how it's done, you know, to grow your own vegetables. And yeah, I think it's good for Eric's. It tastes better, it's fresher. There is no pesticides, there is no preservatives, you know, so it's much better. One, it's more expensive, and the food service, the more they buy, the cheaper it would be for them. That's their business, you know. So, but I think they would work with any schools, any of the schools that would like to have that. So it is a bit of a challenge for the food service. That would be, you know, the reverse. It's cheaper because the more you buy, the cheaper it is. And if you have, like SLU has twice as many children that we have here. So probably for you guys would be better because, and then you have to buy so many times during the week. That would be very hard for the cafeteria manager to do that. There has been a couple outbreaks, you know, with vegetables, and I heard something just happened with cucumbers. But if you buy locally, and of course you wash it, you know where it's coming from. It's better for us because if you don't have control, it's come from Oregon or Colorado. By the time it gets here, you have no idea who you're buying from. You have to be very careful. Doesn't matter if you buy locally, organic, or factory. It has to be well washed, well, you know, and you have to make sure it's not going bad, it's not spoiling. So. Food service is very helpful. They let me buy, you know, locally, and they don't have an issue because it's NERICS, and whatever profit it's taken out of NERICS Hall, you know, they work out between them. So they do support that, the fresh grown, you know, fresh and locally grown. We have little signs that say that all the produce and all the vegetables, all the fruits is locally bought and all that. And food service has been always very supportive of that. Food service has a new plan, I guess, that they're going to introduce next year, that it will be more fresh products, and that will be not just NERICS, it will be everybody, all the schools that they deal with, and more fresh foods and less processed.
It's like an ambitious idea to think about, but look what we've done with like recycling and compost in just the last 2 years. I mean, none of that was here when I came here as a freshman, and suddenly the school like has just gotten so much better about reusing, recycling, reducing, and there are reminders everywhere that like what you throw away goes into the landfill, and I think we've gotten better at that. So I think local farming is, and like local food is a pretty realistic idea for SLU.
I feel like a lot of people bring up expense as an issue for organic food. They say like, oh man, it's hard to use organic food, it's too expensive. City Greens is a local place. It's on, it's off in Tower Grove, right by St. Cronin's. It's really good food. They have like jams and jellies that you can get. They have all types of fruits. They got this new thing started by Dr. Joyce, who is a St. Louis doctor who thinks that, you know, honey, and there's scientific proof that honey helps like prevent asthma and stuff. So she bakes like little goods with made out of honey, and this all goes to support local farmers. It's all healthy, and it's really pretty cheap too.
The complex methods of the food service here kind of, they would be the key people to talk about. What kinds of things could they work into a pretty stressful mass production? You know, they have 15 minutes to turn over the second lunch period and that sort of thing. But we do have quite a lot of food available now in Missouri. There's some food circles. There are CSAs, community-supported agriculture, springing up all over the place. And it would be great maybe just to start with something like a local salad. Of course, in the summer, you know, in the summer, this is when things are available. So we're also talking about not much being available during the school year. Not only has chemical use increased, but the use of Roundup has in fact quadrupled. And the residues in our food are much, much higher than they used to be. So we're getting a heavy dose of pesticides all the time. The bees' decline is directly proportional, I suppose, or indirectly proportional to the rise of Roundup use. And there are several studies that have been done outside the U.S., inside as well, but they've been suppressed, showing a rise in learning disabilities and all sorts of immune diseases that correlate with the rise of genetically modified organisms in our food. With the current world population, we are. With organic and small farms, we can. We did it for a very long time. If we learn to do better distribution and to respect, say, the food sovereignty of peoples who are really self-sufficient agriculturally. Dr. King talked about the paralysis of analysis. At some point we have to look at what we see and say, I get it, I see enough, and make a clear analysis, take a clear picture of what's happening. And then look at the two standards. You know, do I want a chemical model for the way I eat and the way I feed my children, your children? Do I believe in nature? I think it's as simple as a choice like that.
I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna lighten up. I'm gonna throw a box of books and my beloved guitar into the back of my truck and try my luck in California. 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 I'm gonna stay away from LA. I'm staying far away from there. I'm going north of San Francisco into the cleaner air. I'm gonna get a little land with the money I've saved and buy an old house that I can work on, where the next nearest neighbor lives miles away. I'll never have to mow the lawn. Right on, California.